What is up, guys? This is Cody on the Rural Sports Talk here, bringing you the post-race video for the Toyota SafeMart 350 at Sonoma. Clint Bowyer takes the win in this race, and Tony Stewart follows it up with an impressive run, as do Kurt Busch and Brian Vickers. Marcus Ambrose really took the lead early, and from that pole position, and he led the first few laps. And after locking up tires multiple times in, I believe it was turn 7, he kind of just fell like a rock, and he ended up kind of hanging just outside the top 10 throughout the day, like in the 10th through 12th positions, and that was kind of something very disappointing day for him. A lot of people penciled him in as the winner before this race started, and multiple spins happened throughout the race that actually weren't shown on TNT. I believe Travis Voppel was off in the grass once, or the dirt, excuse me, and Ryan Newman spun once, and Bobby Labonte spun in the hairpin, and TNT didn't show us those wrecks, but there were spins throughout the day that they did not show us, but they just didn't bring out full course caution, so I guess they didn't feel the need to show us what happened there. Bowyer was really strong all day, as was his teammate Martin Truex Jr., who was kind of on a different strategy than everyone throughout the day. He was on a 3-stop strategy while other people were on a 2-stop strategy, but the tire fall-off was kind of key in this race, and you had to kind of save your tires and your equipment. And Clint Bowyer did a good job of that early. He had a good balanced car. He passed Jeff Gordon, who passed Marcus Ambrose after he had his troubles. And another story early in the race was the Roush cars. They really qualified well. I believe they had 3 cars in the top 10, and Carl Edwards fell right away. Then Greg Biffle kind of fell off, and Matt Kenseth fell off later. And that was just kind of disappointing for the Roush cars, considering their great qualifying efforts in this race. They thought it might be different than past scenarios where the Roush cars are just historically not good on road courses. And some guys that opposite of the Roush cars were climbing through the field early were Brian Vickers, Kurt Busch, Tony Stewart. Those guys were all rewarded in the end with good top 5 finishes. And Brian Vickers running in that 55 car for Mark Martin, keeping that thing in contention for the Owners' Championship with that good 4th place finish in this race. That car's normally run by Mark Martin, obviously. And he was at home, not wanting to deal with the road course. And Brian Vickers stepped in happily and did a great job. Jeff Gordon ran out of gas, as he was luckily just before he was coming to pit road. If it would have been anywhere else on the track, he might have brought out a caution, but he was able to limp it to pit road, and he actually held up Casey Kane a little bit when that happened because he was going slower than pit road speed, and Casey Kane had to go around him once there was room. But he lost a lot of time getting to his pit stall and on the track, and I believe he fell back outside the top 15 at that point. That was when he was in 2nd position, and he had a pretty strong car throughout the day. He just got unlucky with that and wasn't really able to make it up. First caution of the race didn't come until lap 82, and the previous record before that was 42 laps on this track of green flag racing, and that was in 1997. And there were only 2 cautions in this race. That was also another record that was broken in this race, and that record was before this. The fewest number of cautions was 4 times before this, and it came down to the green-white checkered restart. Kurt Busch, who broke something in his suspension while he was trying to get to Clint Bowyer on that last green flag run prior to the green-white checkered, got a second chance here, and he kind of fell off, but he did get back in it in the end. And Kurt Busch looked like he got a great restart. He did a great job considering he had a beat-up car, broken down car, and that was impressive for him just to stay in that top 5 with that broken suspension. But he ends up falling back spot to Tony Stewart. He was on Bowyer's bumper for a little bit, but Bowyer was just a better car in the end. Stewart might have had something for Bowyer if he would have been able to get by Kurt Busch a little earlier, I should say, in that run. And on this green-white checker, Martin Truex Jr., who was running in the top 10, spun, and also Dale Jr., who had a solid top 15, spun out as well. He got spun. And Martin Truex Jr. from Michael Waltrip Racing and Clint Bowyer both led the 2 drivers that led the most laps. A very strong performance for MWR. And Brian Vickers, also an MWR car. Very good performance for that race team. Unfortunately, Truex didn't get the finish he was looking for. And back to Kurt Busch for a second. He got a little choked up and emotional in his post-race interview with TNT, And I think that just kind of shows the passion and how difficult it is for that race team to get here. It's an underfunded race team, as I said in the pre-race video. Not the best equipment, but the driver might be able to make up for that, is what I said in the video. And we saw that today, that he was the best car for a lot of the race. And if he didn't break his suspension, who knows? He could be in victory lane celebrating right now. And with this win, Clint Bowyer also helps himself in the chase picture, because he moves up 2 spots in the points to 7th, and he has a win now. So that really helps him out moving toward the chase. He has that cushion now where he can go for wins. If he were to fall out of the top 10, he possibly can still make it in on wins. Probably can still make it in on wins if he doesn't completely collapse in this second half of the season. Another guy that spun out in the race was Denny Hamlin. He got turned around by his teammate Joey Logano, and he ended up finishing in 35th. Juan Montoya had some issues with just electrical problems all day. They changed out the battery, I believe it was, once, and he just had some serious issues today. He was strong early. He was running in the top 10 moving forward. He ends up finishing 34th. Martin Truex Jr. and Dale Earnhardt Jr. after those wrecks on the green-white checkered restart end up in 22nd and 23rd. Carl Edwards ends up in 21st after just a rough day after getting that decent qualifying position. And Casey Mears, a good story out of today. He finishes 15th in that number 13 Geico Ford, and that's a good run for those guys. They work hard, and that's just something, yet another case of an underfunded team, not as necessarily as good of equipment, but coming away with a good finish on the day. So your top 5 is Clint Bowyer, Tony Stewart, Kurt Busch, Brian Vickers, and Jimmy Johnson rounds that out. At the end, it was kind of guys on opposite pitch strategies. The guys like Tony Stewart and Brian Vickers and Jeff Gordon, who Jeff Gordon charged it up from like 16th, I think, on from the point of the end of the first caution to the last caution, which was really pretty good considering what this race was supposed to be, just a kind of single file running. The only way we're going to pass is knocking people out of the way, and that was really something that people were wrong about. Even the drivers were expecting it to be just a slugfest today, and just the fact that there were only 2 cautions goes to show that this was really a good race, a clean race for the most part. And the NASCAR really took advantage of those local cautions as opposed to full course cautions. And as I said, Jeff Gordon, Brian Vickers, Tony Stewart, they were all guys that pitted on that lap. I believe it was 82 that caution came out on, the first caution. And guys like Clint Bowyer, Kurt Busch, Jimmy Johnson, they were all guys that were behind, or they weren't behind, but they stayed out. They were part of that group that stayed out on that caution. So Greg Biffle comes home in 7th. He gains a little bit in the point standings. Marcus Ambrose worked his way back up to 8th on that last run after running just outside the top 10 most of the day. AJ Allmendinger, kind of a quiet day for him. As for Joey Logano, they finish in 9th and 10th. That was a decent day for them. Our points leader, Matt Kenseth, finishes in 13th, rounds out a decent day. And as I said, he's a points leader. Greg Biffle now in 2nd with his finish. Dale Jr. with his troubles down to 14 points back in 3rd place. Jimmy Johnson stays pat in the 4th position. And Tony Stewart up 3 spots to 5th in the points. And then Kevin Harvick, Clint Bowyer, Denny Hamlin with his rough day down 3 spots. Martin Truex down 2 spots with that rough finish for him. And Brad Keselowski is in 10th. Looking for the point standings, you just see the guys like Jeff Gordon. He further cemented his place where he can, if he gets a win or two, make it into the chase on wins. But if he doesn't do that, that's going to be a sticking point for him. And this was really a day that a lot of people, I think this was a day that Jeff Gordon had to get a win if he's going to get into this chase. Now, he's perfectly capable of rallying off a couple wins in these next handful of races that we have before the chase, but I think it's going to be very difficult for him because he hasn't had a great season to this point, but it's something that he really has to work on, and I think he can do it. It's just going to be very difficult. I think today was a prime opportunity for him to get that win, and who knows, maybe if there was another green-white checker, he would be in position to possibly get that win, but that wasn't the case, and he's back there in 18th with 0 wins. And this is really time to panic for guys like Carl Edwards, who aren't really running well at all. They're not even running consistent to stay in the top 10 in points. They don't have any wins. They're not contending for wins. It's really something that they have to look out for. And this is the time to hit the panic button for those guys. And then you're going to have that great points battle coming down with the guys that are between 10th and 20th that have wins. Kyle Busch with another part failure today in the closing laps. And he ends up finishing, I believe it was like in 17th or something. So that's something those guys really have to be worried about. They got to keep their equipment together, and they got to keep it. The engine worked out today, but they had some issues late, and that's something that they're going to have to look out for. But they're still they're definitely in the hunt for this championship, and that's impressive looking at these last few races as he's been knocked out of races with problems. He's able to finish today at least. But then the guys like Casey Kane, they're still in contention. And we could see guys like Brad Keselowski fall out of the top 10 if they're not consistent enough. And we could still see guys jump into the top 10 that don't have those points, or those wins, excuse me. So that's something really interesting. I think this points battle is very intriguing at this point. It's not so much the chase for the top spot at this point. It's more the looking toward those guys that are going to get the wild card spots. That's the exciting element of this chase. Tell me what you guys thought about the race today. What you thought about Kurt Busch's performance, Brian Vickers' performance, Tony Stewart's charge through the field. Obviously, a great win for Clint Bowyer, his first at MWR. He kind of got a monkey off of his back there. He had the same monkey on his back, maybe not as big as Kurt Busch, but Kurt Busch comes back. He gets, after his 2 weeks ago, his suspension at Pocono, his performance. Tell me what you guys think about that, and if you think Kurt Busch can get another chance for a win this season. I honestly think the restrictor plate tracks and the road course race later in the season at Watkins Glen is going to be a chance for him to get another win, but I think that's something we'll just have to wait and see. Now Marcus Ambrose's performance, we'll have to see if he can maybe do a little better. Tell me what you guys thought about that. I classify that as a definite disappointment for him. Make sure you subscribe to The Real Sports Talk. Check out our website, and I'm on Twitter now, so you can follow me at Cody_TRST. Thanks.